Some stories don't begin with a cry, but with silence so thick it chokes the sky. Some mothers do not sing lullabies. They hum grief into the bones of the earth. Point Coupe Parish, Louisiana. 1842. The cane fields sway like prison bars in the wind. The sun hangs low, bleeding fire into mud. Slaves march single file into another day. No footsteps, just echoes. Mary walks barefoot across the yard. She doesn't limp. She glides like smoke from a dying flame. Her skin is dull from heat. Her eyes dull from history. But in her chest, something ancient smolders. They call her quiet, but quiet ain't empty. It's just where thunder waits its turn. Each morning, she nurses the white mistress's child, the one they let live. Each night, she whispers to the ghost of her own. The house is still. The baby suckles. The mistress watches from the chair, half mother, half warden. A silver cross hangs from her throat, a lie dressed in lace. The pacifier is dipped in honey. Always honey. Sweet things help you forget bitterness. Mary doesn't forget. She remembers everything. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from and what time it is over there. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel because stories like Mary's must never be forgotten. She remembers hot copper. She remembers steam. She remembers silence. It happened in stillness. Her child, hers, was born pale, with the master's blood tangled in its veins. The mistress looked once, then turned away. The next morning, the laundry pot bubbled early. Mary wasn't called to feed. She was called to clean. They said it was fever, but fever don't leave blood on linen. That night, Mary didn't cry. She scrubbed the copper pot until her fingers split. Red met red. The water turned pink, and the world turned black. She folded what was left, a burned piece of cloth, a fragment of a name, a heartbeat that never got to echo. Twice, the master never said a word. He just nodded. Like death was protocol. Emilien Beauchamp, smooth, sweet, serpent. He kissed his wife with the same mouth he whispered into Mary's ear. When no one was listening, Mistress Celeste, white silk and winter. She prayed with cold hands, hands that took, hands that held a rosary in one palm and fire in the other. Mary cooked their meals, dressed their child, rocked him to sleep with the same arms that had once held a boy of her own. She bit her tongue so often, it forgot how to bleed, but her teeth remembered. She began chewing raw ginger in the dark. Roots bitter enough to wake the bones, sharpened her jaw like a ritual. In the cane field, someone found a possum, face torn off, nothing taken, just destroyed. No one asked questions. Mary started braiding, red thread into her hair, one for each month since her son was taken. It glowed under moonlight like a warning in the kitchen. She stirred pots with hands that never trembled. She saved a bent spoon, carved it into a crescent, tucked it beneath her bed with her son's cloth. Not for use, for memory. The baby she nursed cried more these days. Refused the pacifier unless it came from her. She began dipping it in more than honey. Tinctures, whispers, reminders. Her lullabies changed. The old ones soothed. The new ones warned. One night she whispered, "They buried you in steam, baby. But I keep you in fire." She said his name into her hand, then fed the white child like nothing had happened. The other women watched her. They didn't ask. They hummed when she passed. Old woman, Henrietta whispered to her. Mouth full of ghosts can't speak. Soft. Mary only nodded. In the dead of night, she buried a strip of red cloth beneath the nursery. pressed it into the soil like a seed. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from. What time is it? And whose name do you carry that history tried to erase? The bell rang again. Another day. Another lie. Mary walked to the big house. The ground remembered her weight. The birds paused in the trees. She passed Celeste polishing silver, past Emilian lighting a cigar. Their child giggled from the crib. She walked into the nursery, took the pacifier from the mistress's hand. No eye contact. No sound. Her fingers brushed the baby's cheek. Then her jaw tensed. Just for a second. Some women break. Others sharpen. She buried a child, but she was the one. Reborn, and soon they would taste what they made her swallow. Some women heal in time. Mary counted time in teeth. Every clove she chewed cracked another hour. Every breath she held under boiling steam measured another day. She no longer slept. Not fully. Dreams came jagged now. Broken images. Her baby's face. Her own mouth. Blood on porcelain. Lullabies that ended with screams. She stopped speaking. Altogether, not out of fear, out of precision. Each word withheld was a blade, waiting to be shaped. Each silence a brick in the altar of something sacred, something inevitable. She wrapped a red thread around her wrist, then another, 12 in total, one for each month since her son's heart was stolen. They burned like embers against her skin. They told time better than any clock. She fasted. No meat, no molasses, no bread from the master's hand, only broth, bone and salt, memory and bitterness. She boiled it over low flame, let it steep in silence, sipped it slowly, as if it might carry her son's voice back to her. She smeared ash across her gums, bit wood until her teeth throbbed. The pain reminded her she still had her weapon, her jaw, strong, quiet, unnoticed. Her mouth, where they thought obedience lived. They never saw the storm building behind her lips. She began moving differently, slower, tighter, like a coil waiting to snap. In the nursery, the baby would only take the pacifier from her. Celeste smiled at this. You're his comfort, she said. Mary said nothing. She began dipping the pacifier in more than bourbon now. She whispered over it first. Old words, her mother's words, spells maybe. Prayers, definitely. Let him sleep. Let the dead speak. She tucked a crushed petal of datura under her tongue one night. Let it numb her gums. Then spit it into the fire, a taste test for fate. One morning, she left a small cut across her inner cheek. Let it bleed slowly. Didn't flinch. She wanted to remember the taste, because when it came time to bite, there would be no hesitation. She cleaned the house as usual, stirred gumbo with a bent spoon, polished silver with hands that knew what they would soon do. But the fire in her gut made every movement ceremonial, every gesture a ritual. She buried the spoon behind the smokehouse, said her son's name 3 times. Once for his birth, once for his death, once for the reckoning. She found a rat near the oven, already dead, its face gnawed away. She didn't scream. She smiled. Henrietta, the old woman with eyes like river stones, caught her humming that night. Not a lullaby, a war tune. Your teeth talk now, Henrietta whispered. Mary touched her jaw. They do, she said, and smiled wider. In the garden, she walked barefoot over thorns, felt the sting. Let it bleed. Baptism for the body. She tore a strip from her underdress, wrapped it around her ankle, red, soaked in salt. Hidden beneath layers, every inch of her was becoming a map, every step, a destination. She stopped at the edge of the cane field one evening, watched the sun fall behind. The sugar stalks, they bled you into the earth, she murmured. But I will raise the scream. That night, Celeste asked her to stay late. The master had guests. Laughter filled the parlor like wine, but Mary's ears filtered only the sound of Emilian's teeth clinking against his glass. She memorized the way his jaw moved, the way his throat exposed itself when he laughed. She memorized it like scripture. She would quote it with her mouth. In the shadows, she touched the pacifier in her pocket, still warm from the baby's breath, still sweet from honey, still stained from the prayers she whispered over it. Sleep, little boy, she had said. Sleep through the storm. Your father called. The kitchen was empty. The fire low. She dipped the pacifier in. Bourbon again, deeper this time. Let it soak, let it forget. She tucked a sliver of ginger beneath her tongue, bit down until it burned. One of the younger girls caught her that night. Mary was standing in the hallway, jaw clenched, eyes vacant. Are you all right? She asked. Mary blinked. Do you hear him crying? She said. The girl paused. Who? Mary didn't answer. She walked away. Back in the nursery, the baby stirred. Mary rocked him gently. No! Song. Only the slow grind of her teeth. She kissed his forehead. Not with love. With inheritance. You will never know what you were fed, she whispered. But I will. She stared out this window. Thunder cracked in the distance. 1, 2, 3. She walked to the master's door. No sound. No hesitation. Barefoot, hair loose, jaw tight. The pacifier was still in her hand, still warm, still waiting. The night held its breath. The house stilled. The storm was almost here. The night didn't begin. It arrived like judgment. Midnight crawled over Belrose Hollow like oil. The cane fields held their breath. Even the moon dimmed behind clouds, unwilling to witness what it had long been waiting for. Mary stood in the doorway of the master's room, barefoot, linen dress soaked in sweat and silence, the child's pacifier still warm in her hand. Emilian Beauchamp lay on silk sheets, one arm splayed like a blessing, the other crooked above his head. He breathed through his mouth, always through his mouth, the same mouth that whispered sin, demanded silence, stole breath. She stepped closer, 1 foot, then the next, like walking through memory. Every board beneath her creaked like the ribs of the dead. She climbed onto the bed, straddled him, knees firm, jaw set, his breath hitched. He woke to a shape above him, a shadow with heat. Celeste, he croaked. She leaned close, mouth near his cheek, cheek near her teeth. I gave you my silence, she said. Now, take my scream. Her mouth opened, not with rage, but with purpose. She bit down, not a snap, a slow, steady pressure, like remembering. His scream never came. It seeped, as if his body was ashamed. She didn't blink, she didn't speak, only breathed. Deep ritual, sacrament. She rose without wiping her face, carried the strip of flesh like offering, down the hall, back to the nursery. The baby stirred, but didn't cry. She laid the bloodied flesh beside the crib, placed the pacifier next to it. Let your father's face feed you, she whispered, as I once fed my grief. She pressed her forehead to the child's, closed her eyes. Your brother's name is Léon. Say it in your sleep. The house stirred with confusion. Footsteps, gasps. A scream cracked through the wall. Celeste. Then vomiting. Then running. Then silence. The enslaved gathered outside the big house. Bare feet. Wrapped hair. Heavy eyes. No one spoke, but many understood. Henrietta was the first to hum. Low, slow, A funeral rhythm passed down from Dahomey. Others joined, not with words, with presence. Mary stood at the top of the stairs, blood on her mouth, red thread in her hair, nothing in her hands. She did not resist when they seized her. 2 white men, trembling. One held a pistol, the other a Bible. Neither met her eyes. She was taken in daylight, through the cane fields, her shadow long behind her like history. The trial was quick. 3 days. They called her monster, witch.beast. They described her teeth as unnatural, her silence as demonic, her grief as unfeminine. She never spoke. The courtroom smelled of cigar smoke and sweat. No one mentioned the dead child. No one said his name. Celeste wept through a veil. Emilian sat with a bandage over half his face. He would never speak clearly again. Good. When the verdict came, Mary didn't flinch. Death by hanging, scheduled 1 week hence. The night before, Henrietta visited her cell. No words exchanged, just an old spoon placed in Mary's hand, bent, carved, sacred. Mary kissed it, then kissed Henrietta's palm. "Tell them," she whispered, "that I screamed with my mouth closed." The next morning, her body swung from the cypress tree near the river. But her story unraveled like red thread. The wet nurses were replaced. White mothers began nursing their own, or not at all. Some said their babies cried differently now, as if they remembered something they had never lived. Enslaved women began wearing red thread in their hair, tied tight, hidden beneath scarves, a warning, a tribute. A girl named Ruth dug up the spoon behind the smokehouse, wrapped it in cloth, kept it in a box beside her grandmother's comb. Years later she told her daughter, "Don't fear your mouth, child. It's where truth begins." Emilian's scar festered until he stopped being seen in public. Celeste never bore another child. She refused to speak Mary's name. But every time she heard a baby cry, she crossed herself twice. Some say Mary haunts the cane fields, mouth wide, silent. Others say she never left the nursery, that each child fed in silence still drinks from her grief, and every now and then, when the moon is low and the wind bends like a woman in mourning, you can hear the hum. Soft, dangerous, sharp as bone, a lullaby that warns, I remember. A moss-covered cypress tree still stands near the river. A red thread hangs from its lowest branch, tied to a cracked spoon. It swings when no wind blows. They buried her in silence, but every scream since then has her teeth in it. If this story reached you, don't let it be buried again. Drop a comment. Tell us where you're watching from, and whose name history tried to erase. Subscribe, hit the bell, and share this story to keep memory alive, to keep justice loud, to keep Mary's name on every tongue.